Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Crimzon Tier Review. I'm your host, Crimzon. Excuse me. And for now on, I think I should probably start calling this the Crimzon Podcast because of its long form format nature. And even though it's just me and most podcasts are several people, I'll probably just start calling it the Crimzon Tier Podcast or Crimzon Review because I eventually will start doing smaller series that can't really be made into large tiers. But this is all in the future, and I'm going to focus on large series first. So let's get started with today's topic. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, which consists of 9 movies, which can be divided into 3 continuities. As always, there will be lots and lots of spoilers for these films, so if you haven't seen them, you've been warned. But first, brief history. The original came out in 1974 and was directed by Tobe Hooper, who also co-wrote it along with Kim Hinkle. It was initially marked as based on a true story to help it sell better. But in reality, it only borrowed from real-life stuff, specifically the serial killer Ed Gein back in the 50s or 60s, I can't remember which. But that is a long story with that guy. If you want to know more, it's pretty gruesome, just warning you. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos out there about him. But, yeah, I could also go into length about the history of just the first film in general, and how the film industry would just screw the living crap out of Tobe Hooper for making this film, just because of the controversy it generated, and it was over the title, just the title. Like, the actual movie isn't actually that bad, at least the first one, but yeah, the MPAA would go on to screw this movie, screw Tobe Hooper for many, many years. However, if I explained everything that went on behind the scenes, that would be at least 2 to 3 hours. So I urge you to look that up on your own time. There are lots and lots of videos out there. There's even a documentary that is or was on Tubi. You'll have to check, but just type in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But yeah, let's get started with, of course, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As I said, released in 1974, and it is getting an S, obviously. So I'm going to be very sparse with the background of this movie, because this is one movie that I feel like everyone, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. But anyway, so 5 individuals: Sally Hardesty, her paraplegic brother Franklin, and their friends Jerry, Pam, and Kirk are all driving to see Sally and Franklin's grandfather's grave. Soon they stop at an old house that was owned by the Hardesties, and eventually they run into the infamous Leatherface and his family, which are all cannibals. Soon, all that is left is Sally, and she eventually makes her escape. And yeah, the end. Like I said, I'm keeping this bare bones. Like I say, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But what can be said about this movie that hasn't already been said? It's a masterpiece. and one of, if not the greatest horror films ever made, because despite the name, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it featured no gore, like you would think it would, and very little instances of blood. It scared you by not what it showed you, but what it didn't show you. It left you to use your own imagination. And that is what makes this film a masterpiece. That is why I think people love it. One of the many reasons. But now we move on to number 2, which took a drastic turn in tone. And it's also an S. It had been a while since I watched this, and yeah, I love this movie. It was released in 1986, and it instead of being a full-on horror, this is a black comedy. So, over a decade later, the Sawyer clan, as they're now named, have moved on from the first movie and have relocated and have begun terrorizing the area of Dallas. When 2 drunken idiots call into a radio show while on the road, yeah, they call in on a old-timey cell phone from the 80s, calling while driving. Apparently it was even a problem back then. They get attacked and killed by Leatherface, and all their screaming cries of death is recorded on air by the radio. And the DJ there, DJ Stretch, real name is Vanita. She takes this to Lieutenant Bode, who is also known as Lefty, who apparently is the uncle of Sally and Franklin from the first movie, who is now out for revenge. So, Leatherface and Chop Top, who is another one of the brothers, along with Drayton, in Leatherface, but apparently Chop Top, he was over in Vietnam at the time of the first movie. But anyway, so Leatherface and Chop Top, they attack the radio station after Lieutenant Bode, he tells Stretch to play the death footage again over the air to hopefully lure them out. And it does. Then, eventually, Stretch and Lefty find their way to the Sawyer's base, which is at a golf course, and chaos ensues, as you can imagine. And Stretch ends up having a fight with Chop Top at the top of a golf course attraction, and kills him. And afterwards, much like at the end of the first movie, where Leatherface just goes crazy with his chainsaw, she does the same. And yeah, the end. So yeah, like I said, this was a black comedy. It is absolutely hilarious. It just gets crazy as hell. And that's honestly what makes this an S rank. And much like the first movie, this apparently also had some issues with the production company, which was Canon Pictures. Also, the MPAA was also being a-holes. So this series just does not have a good history. But anyway, moving on to Leatherface, a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, released in 1990, and it's getting an A. Yeah, I know, controversial. Anyway, so the film opens up with the narrator saying that all the Sawyers have been pretty much killed, except for one who is identified as W.E. Sawyer. And he was caught and then executed in the gas chamber, with Leatherface still at large. And also that Sally Hardesty had died in a mental hospital. Soon after a scene with Leatherface, him killing off a girl, we are introduced to a couple, Michelle and Ryan. Driving across Texas, they soon come to a gas station, which is later revealed to be manned by the Sawyers. They soon have to leave, and then a big truck from the gas station comes speeding along and runs them off the road, and they have a wreck. Luckily, a guy named Benny, who is a survivalist, helps them, but soon they encounter Leatherface and the Sawyers. Ryan ends up getting killed along the way, sadly, and fast forward, Michelle finds the Sawyer house and gets knocked out and captured, which has a whole new family, and, which includes Leatherface, of course, a mother, a father who has a hook hand. The grandfather makes an appearance again, but oddly enough, he's not actually alive like he kind of sort of was in the first two. You know, just a decrepit 150-something-year-old corpse. But no, in this one, he actually is dead. But anyway, two more brothers of Leatherface, Tex and Alfredo. Tex was played by Viggo Mortensen, and he was really and truly the main antagonist of the series. But anyway, then finally we have one more, a little girl who, according to the wiki for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is Leatherface's daughter. Yeah, don't ask, because I have no idea either. So, eventually Benny rescues Michelle. He gets an assault rifle and shoots just about everyone up. The mother, the father, Tex, he ends up getting lit on fire. And Michelle, she ends up seemingly killing Leatherface, or so she thinks. They escape, thinking their problems are over, but Alfredo ends up hitching a ride in the truck that she escapes in, but luckily Benny comes along and kills him, leaves him on the side of the road, and with Michelle saying, you know what, there's roadkill all over Texas. And Benny just goes damn straight. And the end. So, surprise, surprise, this was another movie that apparently had a lot of problems due to the MPAA. Seriously, these dudes are assholes. They stuck their nose in, and the movie had to be cut, which made a lot of people angry, including the director. He was really not happy about it. But I liked this movie. Okay, I liked it. It was gritty. It was dark. I just loved it. I know that, like I said, I know that's not a popular opinion. Many people hate this movie, but I don't care. Now, we move on to the return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a.k.a. the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, releasing in 1995. And I was going to give this an F, but I'll give it a D. I'm going to explain as best I can. Frankly, this movie is almost nonsensical. So, for 20-something-year-old teenagers, Barry, Heather, Jenny and Sean are all attending prom. Some drama ensues and they end up leaving and take a detour off the highway and hit a guy. So they go looking for help. What follows is frankly just boring as crap. They go find one chick, Darla. She calls Vilmer, who has a tow truck and a cybernetic leg, which that's creative. I'll give them that. But anyway, surprise, surprise, he turns out to be a killer. But the way they reveal it is just bad. He just comes out and says, I'm a killer, and snaps the neck of the poor kid the other kids hit. And then chases and kills Sean, who had stayed behind to wait for the other three to get help. So the other three get lost. Eventually, they run into the Sawyers, who is made up of Vilmer, his girlfriend Darla, Walter Edward, a.k.a. W.E. Sawyer, who was the guy they named in the third one. Yeah, I know the continuity of this series has always been kind of weird. Anyway, and of course, Leatherface, who is a drag queen now, I guess. I have no clue. That this film just was so confusing. Anyway, soon some guy from the Illuminati or some shit like that arrives, and it's revealed that this family works for them. Anyway, Jenny escapes and is picked up by the Illuminati dude, whose name is Rothman, who apologizes, saying that the experience was supposed to be spiritual, whatever the fuck that means. Anyway, he takes her to the hospital and sees Sally Hardesty on a gurney being rolled down the hallway, and then the film ends. The end. This film is almost too painful to watch, and it almost got an F rank, like I said, but there's a small amount of charm to it. I mean, it has a young Renee Zellweger in it, so that's a plus. Matthew McConaughey played the guy with the Vilmer, the guy with the cyborg leg. That was cool. And like I said, it seems to retcon the third film when it said that W.E. Sawyer was executed, which he wasn't even a character in the other movies. Also, it said that Sally was dead, but clearly that's not the case. Especially since her character returns in the last movie that they do for this timeline. But yeah, my God, this shit is a mess. Yeah, let's move on. I'm sorry, this film hurt my brain. Well, we now move on to. Sorry, I'm stammering. I'm sorry, my brain still hurts from this film just thinking about it. We're going to be moving on to the second continuity, which consists of a remake and a prequel to that remake, which was made by Platinum Dunes Productions. Starting with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in 2003. And it's going to get an A. And we're going to place it right before Leatherface. So this remake is about 5 people going to Dallas to see a concert. They soon pick up a hitchhiker who is pretty rough looking. She soon freaks out and takes out a gun and, well, watch the film. I can't say it on YouTube. Anyway, so they pull over. They get a lady to call the sheriff, and then they have to drive to a local mill, which they do. Soon they split up with Erin and her boyfriend, Kemper, coming across the Hewitt's house, which is the name of the infamous family for this remake. All the while, the three others, Morgan, Andy, and Pepper, wait at the van for the sheriff, who finally arrives and takes the body. Soon the main character, Aaron, loses Kemper back at the house and comes back for the other three. And lots of scenes later, they find themselves at the mercy of Leatherface and his family, with only Aaron being able to escape alive. We then cut to the cops investigating the house and its basement, only to be attacked by Leatherface, with the narrator saying Leatherface was never caught, leaving the case open. So, this remake was really good in my opinion, and returned to the dark and gritty roots that was in the original. And also, it just gets bonus points for Jessica Biel. There's bias, I know. However, now we move on to the prequel. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, which was released in 2006. And it's going to be getting a B. So, as the name suggests, this is a prequel to the other one, and an origin to Leatherface. Beginning in 1939, a woman is working at a slaughterhouse, and suddenly her water breaks and falls over dead, but the child survives and is severely deformed. Well, they throw the baby out in the dumpster. Dang. Starting off really messed up. Soon, a young Mrs. Hewitt finds him and takes him home. We then fast forward to 1969. 69. Thomas Hewitt, better known as Leatherface, is working at the same slaughterhouse, but it's being closed down by the health department and is told to get out. And he does, after being called a freak. So he returns to kill the supervisor. Soon the sheriff goes and gets Charlie Hewitt, who is his adopted brother, to track him down, and they find Leatherface. And they meet him on the road, and the sheriff tells him to stay in the car, and he goes out. Well, Charlie decides to grab the sheriff's gun and kills the sheriff, and assumes the identity of Sheriff Hoyt, the identity he used in the first film. We cut to them serving up the sheriff for dinner, saying they won't go hungry now. By the way, I just want to point out that Arlie Ermey plays Sheriff Hoyt, Charlie, whichever name you want to. I mean, Charlie's his real name, but he does such a good job playing him. I mean, Arlie Ermey is just great in general, but anyway, we then cut to our protagonists, Eric and Dean, along with their girlfriends, Chrissy and Bailey, who are all driving cross-country so that Eric can re-enlist in Vietnam, and so that Dean can enlist as he was drafted. However, later it's revealed that he doesn't want to go, as we see him trying to burn his draft card. Well, soon they get into a wreck after trying to be pulled over by a biker trick trying to rob them, but Sheriff Hoyt arrives just in time, as she has a gun to their head on the side of the road, and, well, he just kills her. Yeah, he just point blank just shoots her. And then sees the draft card on the ground and gets angry, and as if he wasn't going to already take them in, but yeah, he takes them in. They soon realize this guy is bad news after taking them to their house and not a cop station. And after much chaos, all of them are killed by the family. Even Chrissy, who does manage to get far, but sadly Leatherface hides in the car and kills her with a chainsaw. And the end. So, this film gave a decent origin for Leatherface. And we also get other things, tidbits like how Hoyt, loses his 3 front teeth, and how the uncle of the family lost his legs, which is just really funny, actually. If you haven't watched this film, I recommend it. That's why I left that out. And honestly, it's also why I generally leave out a lot of stuff, only giving rough summaries of the beginning of each film and leaving the middle open for you to check out. It's spoilers, but without actually fully spoiling the film. Although, let's face it, I did give you a spoiler warning before this, and I'll always give spoiler warnings before each video I do, so, whatever. Anyway, now we move on to the 7th and 8th films, which acted as a sequel and a prequel to the original 1974, which retcons films 2 through 4. And starting with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, released in 2013, and honestly, it's getting an A. Right between the remake and Leatherface. Yeah, I was really surprised. I had only watched this movie once before rewatching it, so I really didn't remember it. But it opens up after the original film as the cops arrive at the Sawyer's house, of which there are now more family members whom I guess they just lived elsewhere. I don't know. This was a bit random, but I'll go along with it. Now the cops outside are demanding that Leatherface be handed over, and initially they are willing to do it. However, a lynch mob arrives, and against the cops' wishes, like the cop that's there, they decide to torch the place, with all members dying. They torch the place and shoot the place up. They shoot the place up first, and then they torch it, with all the members dead. Except for one lady, she manages to escape, holding a baby, whom one of the guys finds. He takes the baby and kills the woman dead. And then that man and his wife, they raise the child. We then fast forward to the present day. The girl, whose name is Heather, is all grown up to 39, which is funny because at the time of playing the character, Alexandria Daddario was only 26, but whatever. She receives a letter informing her of an inheritance that she has after her grandmother Verna dies, which also causes her to learn that she's adopted. So her boyfriend Ryan, best friend Nikki, and Nikki's boyfriend Kenny, they travel to get the inheritance, and they also pick up a hitchhiker, Daryl. They arrive and find out that the inheritance is a massive house, and they decide to stay a while. They leave Daryl behind to go shopping, and surprise! He's a thief and starts stealing shit. But soon he's discovered by a Leatherface. That's right, the big guy survived the fire. He must have got out. The others return home to discover the place. Daryl gone and stuff is stolen, but they shrug it off. Soon after, they find the secret door that Daryl found. and others start dying, with only Heather surviving. She ends up getting taken to the police station and looks through the evidence box and finds out the truth about everything, and she leaves. But Hartman, who was the lead guy who led the vigilantes on the Sawyers back in the 70s, decides to kill her and also find and kill Leatherface. Later, Heather meets up with the lawyer who initially gave her the deed, who led her to the house for the inheritance, gave her the deed and everything, and also handed her a letter from Verna, of which Heather still hasn't read, despite the lawyer telling her to please read it. But he tells her that Leatherface, whose name is Jedediah, or Jed for short, is in fact her cousin. So she leaves and is kidnapped by one of the deputies, who is actually Hartman's son, and takes her to meet at the plant where Leatherface arrives. Yeah, the meat packing plant, sorry. Where Leatherface arrives and soon realizes that she's his cousin after seeing the Sawyer symbol that was burned into her when she was a baby from a necklace. And he cuts her down. A fight ensues and they kill the vigilantes and they go back to the house. There, Heather reads the letter, finally, and learns about Leatherface, and that her real name is Edith Rose Sawyer, and that Leatherface will always protect her till the end of his days. So, like I said, I was surprised when I rewatched it. I did not remember this being a good movie, and it was nice that they did so good. I mean, in my opinion. And like I said, once again, bias again. It has Alexandria Daddario in it. But seriously, I like the film. Plus, it has a really, really good post-credits ending. I won't spoil that. Watch it. It's absolutely hilarious. And now, time for the prequel they made. Leatherface. Released in 2017. And it's going to be a C for me. So we open up to 1955. Young Jedediah, a.k.a. Leatherface, is having his 8th birthday party. We also see Verna, who is his mother and the matriarch of the family. And Jed is asked to kill a man who supposedly tried to steal their pigs, but is unable to do so. So Grandpa, after Jedediah fails to kill the man, Grandpa comes along and does it for him with a hammer. One shot! Yeah, we finally get to see the legendary one-shot action that Dayton and Nubbins, the two brothers from the first movie, bragged about in the original. Anyway, after the opening credits, we see Jed lead a girl off the road to a barn where Dayton and Nubbins finish her off. And the sheriff Hartman, the father of Bert from the last movie, and also the father of the girl that was just killed, comes and flips out naturally. I mean, like any father. And as a form of vengeance, has all of Verna's children taken away and put in a loony bin. We fast forward to 1965, and Jed, now named Jackson, has adjusted to the life in the nut house, and the place even gets a new nurse, Lizzie. Well, soon Verna attempts to come and see her son, and the asshole doctor says no, even after she gives him an injunction, basically saying that, yes, I can see, my children, but... So, yeah, she's mad. She storms off, understandably mad, but she breaks through, trying to find her boy, and even starts a riot in the process, with tons of the staff getting killed in the process. Soon they escape. Jed and Lizzie escape, but are captured by two other lunatics, Ike and Clarice, and also pick another escapee named Bud. They start to make their escape, and eventually, after a few events, Jed, Lizzie, and Bud are able to shake the others, only to be met by the psycho Sheriff Hartman. Soon, Bud is killed by the cop, and this causes Jed to flip out and just beats him senseless. He puts him in between the car and the door, and just starts slamming the door on him. If you ever seen the Netflix Daredevil series, the one where Kingpin, slams the guy, repeatedly in the door, it's like that. It happens. But anyway, they escape, and in the chase, Hartman starts shooting, and Jed gets shot in the face, and they have a wreck. Lizzie wakes up and goes out to the barn to find that Hartman has tied Jed up, but soon Verna and the family arrive and save him, take him home, and they also capture Hartman and Lizzie. Verna sews up Jed's face and even hands him his chainsaw, which he uses on Hartman and, unfortunately, Lizzie a little later. And then we see him making his first mask from the last two people's faces that he killed. He looks into the mirror and clearly does not like what he sees and just smashes it. And then the end. So as far as prequels are concerned, it was okay. It wasn't a disaster. It could have been better. It just got a little confusing. Like, at the end, why Jed goes crazingly and then seemingly just turns dim-witted and psychopathic. Like we know him in the original. Like, I get he was shot in the face, but that's the face. And unless he got grazed in the brain or something, which that clearly wasn't the case, so I don't know why he goes slow after the event. I don't know, perhaps he was traumatized after seeing his friend Bud getting shot. I have no clue. Honestly, yeah, it was just confusing. Let's move on to the original movie. To the last movie, sorry. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which returns to the original continuity. This was released in 2022, and it's going to get a C right before... Sorry, it's not cooperating. Right before Leatherface. So, about 50 years after the original film, Sally Hardesty is revealed to be alive, and he's even become a Texas Ranger. And the murders that happened back then have become unsolved. And a group of 4 young, stupid Gen Zers go into the ghost town of Harlow and refix it up for even more young, stupid kids to move in away from the city. and make it their home. We find the contractor, Mo, who also stays here waiting for the kids to get there so he can get paid. Well, as they look around, they find an old lady still living in an orphanage that she used to run. And also, Leatherface is also there, I guess, after the events of the 1994 film. He just came back. No clue. Anyway, she apparently isn't supposed to be there and was supposed to leave, but didn't. Well, the cops arrive, and she has a heart attack. Leatherface carries her out and into the ambulance. On the way, she passes away, and this causes Leatherface to go into a frenzy and kills the man in the back, and he soon murders the rest of the people. He comes back and, well, starts killing everyone else, with only two sisters, Lila and Melody, to fight back against him, with Sally even showing up to help later. Briefly. Only to be shortly killed. What a freaking waste! I'm sorry. Anyway. Soon the two sisters are able to beat Leatherface. And as they're leaving, Leatherface yanks Melody out of the car and saws her head off and flails around. Boom. The end. So, this movie was a little painful to watch. And almost comes off as if it's trying to make some kind of left-wing political statements with, like, against, like, guns or something, because, like, Lila is, like, a survivor of, like, a school shooting, and then there are other stuff in the films, but the main producer stated it was the opposite, and he wasn't trying to make a statement. In fact, he was... If anything, he was trying to say that, you know how we live in a world where both sides are constantly fighting, and no side is really completely wrong or right, and there's other more important, horrible stuff that we should be paying attention to. But anyway, I appreciate that. And honestly, the only thing that really kept this movie from, like, going into a D, or heck, even an F, was a scene where Leatherface gets on the bus and one of the guys holds up a camera and says, "We're gonna get you canceled." And then afterwards, Leatherface just butchers every single one of them. I don't know why I found that funny. I mean, it was really gory. Probably the most gory scene that they have ever done. Then again, I have a sick sense of humor. But yeah, that's the entire series of Texas Chainsaw Massacre so far. Now, there have been a number of comics also created that I have not read, so I'll have to fix that at some point or another. There have been a few video games, a novelization of the 2003 remake movie. There was going to be a new movie called All American Massacre, which would have been a sequel and a prequel to the second film, and would see the character Chop Top surviving his fight with DJ Stretch. And he would be in a loony bin, and he would talk about his past right before he carried out his murders with Leatherface in them, and then afterwards he would essentially escape, starting a whole new string of murders. The movie even had a trailer, and even has interviews. Sorry, you can still find them on YouTube. And Bill Moseley was even going to come back. But sadly, the film never came out, which is just as disappointing. Now, there's also one piece of media, a movie called Butcher Boys, which was released in 2012. It was written by Kim Kinkle, the writer of the original film, and was intended to be a modern sequel to the original film, or the fourth film, technically. But it was later rewritten as a standalone film. Now, apparently, it still sets out to carry on the narrative of the Illuminati, apparently, controlling the murderers or something. Like I said, I don't know. I haven't watched it yet. I will do so, and maybe I'll make it my first, single film review for this channel at some point. We shall see. Anyway, that's it for the video. The final score, of course, going from greatest to least, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, Leatherface, and finally, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, or The Return of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know which is the proper one. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this film. Tune in next time, where I will be talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night. Subscribe and share with your friends if you like this. And, yeah, peace.